Hi, welcome to On the Wild Side. I'm your host, Kyle Shepard. Today here at the Louisville Zoo, we're going to learn about the importance of pollinators, what they mean to our grocery stores, our food supply, and our lifestyles. We're also going to talk to Stephanie Bromback, our events coordinator here at the zoo, and talk about our beautiful wildlife. And we will also talk about the zoo's beehive, meet the beekeeper here at the Louisville Zoo. And finally, we'll talk about how you can become a community partner in the zoo's building of additional habitats for monarchs in our Monarchs of Milkweed program. All that and more. Let's take a walk on the wild side. So we're here at the Butterflies and Blooms exhibit. It looks a little different than you might see it in the spring. And so we're here with Matt Lamb, the Assistant Curator of Conservation and Education, and he's our resident pollinator expert. So talk to us a little bit about just pollinators in general and how important they are to our way of life.
Pollinators are what people would see like in an everyday walking around if you were outside, bees, butterflies, certain beetles, even ants. And so but they're basically doing a process that we refer to as pollination, which is the fertilization of a flower which produces a fruit. And those fruits end up on our tables and stuff that will be in the produce section. So, and they're really important. So probably the estimate now is that really like 1 out of every 3 bites of food that you take is a result of a pollinator. Probably 60% of the products in a produce section wouldn't be available if we didn't have pollinators. And that's the thing, is they do this service for free. It's just nature doing what it does every day.
So what are the main pollinators?
Our most successful and efficient pollinators are by far bees. And we have probably about 4,000 native bee species. So like the European honeybee is a non-native species. It came from Europe, people brought it over, and it lives in a hive. Our native bees are mostly solitary. They have a completely different kind of existence, and so a lot of them are ground nesters, or they'll nest in logs and stuff, and they just kind of go through their day-to-day life just doing their thing, pollinating. A good example of a native bee would be a sweat bee, and they usually, because they're small, they go unnoticed, but they're super important.
What exactly is pollination and how does it happen?
Such a good question. So pollination, so like if you go up to a flower, so that basically there are male and female reproductive parts in a flower. And it's the stuff that most people hate, like they're allergic to pollen. So it's that dust that comes off of certain trees, or you'll see on certain flowers. And if you ever see like a picture of a bee and it looks like it's covered, a great way to put it is in Cheeto dust. That's the pollen that's sticking to all the hairs on the bee. And basically what it does is it will carry that pollen from one flower to the next, and the pollen grains rub off, and then so it essentially gets onto from the male to the female parts, and it fertilizes the flower. So, and then it basically within the bottom, like the flower petals will fall off and a fruit will be produced.
Talk to us about how butterflies are pollinators.
It's kind of been like if you want to call it like an arms race. And so our pollinators and our flowering plants have kind of co-evolved. And so they've learned to and one of the cool things you have to remember is the way we see the world with the wavelength of light we look at. Pollinators don't necessarily see the same thing because they can see outside the visible spectrum of light. So flowers actually look way different to pollinators. So what we see as yellow is a little bit different color, but they get attracted to these certain colors. They get attracted to the chemical scents that the flowers put out, and it's the same process. And so they essentially land on a flower. They want the butterflies want the nectar. And so, but the pollen rubs off on their feet and part of their bodies, and then they go from flower to flower.
So a little while later, we'll also talk to some folks down in Islands about the Rodriguez fruit bats and how we don't think about bats as pollinators, but they are. So we'll talk about that a little later. But birds are also pollinators, but they do it a little differently. So talk about how they spread seed.
A great example of a pollinator would be a hummingbird. Again, so it's kind of the same thing of when the hummingbird is visiting each flower for nectar. They're getting the pollen grains that get onto their feathers on the front, and then they essentially touch another flower and it transfers. So a great seed disperser here is like a little box turtle that we have. And so like they have a great relationship with a plant called a mayapple. And so it's the same thing. So they're anything that really consumes those seeds and excretes them there's a better chance of like germination because it's worn down like part of the seed on the outside, so they usually germinate pretty easily.
So in 2016, we became a way station for monarch butterflies when we started to do our Butterflies in Bloom
Right.
exhibit. So talk to us a little bit about the importance of being a way station, what that means to butterflies.
Sure.
And then also the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, of which we are a member, and who do our accreditation, they have started the Safe Species Program for.
In 2016, we started our native butterfly exhibit, our Butterflies in Blooms. It has up to 20 species at any given time, and it really showcases our monarch butterfly. And then we have other big ones that more people are familiar with, like our big swallowtails. And those are probably the most familiar butterflies. We became a member of AZA's SAFE program in late 2020, and 2021 was our first full year as a SAFE monarch member. The monarch butterfly was actually listed as a safe species in 2019, and so we had been doing monarch butterflies for really 3 years before it became a safe species, and then basically right after it became listed as safe species, we were pretty much on board with that program.
Let me stop you just for a minute and remind everybody, Safe Species is saving animals from extinction, and it is part of the AZA conservation process.
This is our program sign for our monarchs and milkweed habitat project. So we have our SAFE logo and our AZA logo as well.
So what does it mean to be a way station?
The habitats that we designed for our program, and like this one back here, which was our first way station at the zoo, are all designed and certified by an organization called Monarch Watch. And they basically will certify your habitat because you have to have criteria, have certain plants in here. One of which is super important for monarchs is the milkweed plant. So there's a variety of species you can put in. So we've got a variety of different species of native wildflowers in here that can bloom anywhere between like spring, like April, May, all the way through September, October, so there's a constant nectar source. Even though our monarchs will migrate out, this is important habitat for our other native butterfly species that overwinter in Kentucky. It's important for other species as well. We've actually got a sign, leave the leaves, because everyone wants to clean up everything in the fall. But if you go raking up everything and taking all those leaves, like you're raking up a lot of chrysalids from like our swallowtails, and even a species of butterfly called a morning cloak that's an adult butterfly right now, it could be under the leaves just waiting for it to warm up. So you're raking all that up and taking next year's butterflies.
Normally there's a bunch of beautiful milkweed behind us, and milkweed is the exclusive source of fuel for the monarchs. So
the milkweed plant serves as what we call a host plant and a nectar plant. And so when we talk about a host plant, what that means is that's the only plant that a caterpillar of a certain species will eat. And so for monarch butterflies, milkweed is their only host plant. So if they don't have milkweed plants of whatever species is available, the females will eventually have to lay their eggs because that's just the way nature works. They'll find a place to lay them, but the caterpillars won't have anything to eat. They only want to eat milkweed leaves. And so caterpillars will eat the leaves, but it's also a nectar plant where adult butterflies will feed on the nectar in the flowers. And so here in Kentucky, we probably have 3 primary species that are really good to put, and some of them are kind of location dependent, but the 2 I would recommend would be swamp milkweed and butterfly milkweed. The third one, that's called common milkweed, is the one that most people have had experience with that they don't like because it actually spreads through an underground root, and perfectly reasonable. Like that's not a plant that really should be planted in any location because it does spread. But if you've got space to like let it kind of wander and take over, that's a great plant to consider because it's almost like the Home Depot of plants. Like over 400 species of insects will use that plant. And so like it's pretty important out there.
The Home Depot of plants.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So people are probably excited about maybe what they can plant in their own yards to attract beautiful butterflies and pollinators.
Each spring and each fall, we do a class that's called Monarchs and Mimosas, and it's adult only class. April 29th, you get pastries, you get cocktails. Part of your registration, you get a swamp milkweed plant. And then we actually hopefully are going to have native plant sale following the class, and so that's always good because you can go get more plants. And so basically the thing I talk about is it's important to know the site. Really the big thing is knowing the site where you're going to plant, because plants are expensive, you spend money on these things, but so you want to put the right plant in the right spot. Hopefully it's going to reestablish people's connection with nature. Like gardens got real popular during COVID, fruit and vegetable gardens and even just flower gardens. And so it's your little space of, zen solitude to go out there and kind of just, sit outside and create some habitat.
So you're going to learn about what plants to plant in your own yard in that class, Mimosas and Milkweed, or Milkweed and Mimosas. But also if you're a community partner and you're looking to plant a pollinator garden. We do that with some community partners.
Yeah. Our big zoo project is called the Monarchs and Milkweed Pollinator Habitat Project. We have a dedicated zoo website for that. And so basically what we're looking for is ideally a high profile spot, 6 by 6 up to maybe like 15 by 15. And they're really demonstration habitats. I basically come out, I'll look at your site, I'll talk to you about the conditions, where it's at, if it'll work or not. I'll design a habitat with the plants that would work best in that site. I get it certified by Monarch Watch. We come out and we only do installations in spring and fall. Really what we're looking for a community partner is a person who would agree to host that and care for it. Don't spray it, don't cut it down in the fall. Really just maintain it for 3 years.
So if you are a community partner who is interested in the Monarchs and Milkweed program, visit our website. All those guidelines are on there. And
yeah, we've actually got a special email. It's monarchsandmilkweed@louisvilleky.gov.
There you go. One final thing. The monarch is very important, and it was almost listed as endangered.
It was.
Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so it was actually up for consideration to be listed on the U.S. Endangered Species Act just a couple of years ago, and it was decided that it was not going to be listed. But the monarch has declined probably 80% in the last 20 plus years. So it's one of those things that, and our pollinators overall are just declining because of lack of habitat. That's the big thing. Spraying, turning things, which it happens, but habitat is important too for our pollinators, and so especially for our, like our food security.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, you have been at the zoo for how long, and what is your favorite part of your job?
Oh, I've been at the zoo since 2007. I've been in the position I'm in now as assistant curator since 2014. And the favorite part of my job, I know I wear a lot of different hats. I'm an educator, so I just love teaching people, but I also love our animal collection, the animals that I care for, our conservation program here with monarchs, and so that's a tough decision. I probably couldn't pick any one thing because I like it too much. So yeah.
I think maybe that sloth that you get to care for is pretty cool.
Yeah, they're all pretty nice.
Do you have an idea about how much longer? Everything from Boo at the Zoo to the Wild Lights Lantern Festival to some of our movie nights during the summer, I'm responsible for kind of curating those events and putting together and inviting the public to join us for them. What time is that tomorrow? Currently setting up for the Wild Lights Asian Lantern Festival here at the zoo. Immensely busy time. We were thinking about putting barriers up to help them to keep the kids off of the lanterns. So our team Tianyu is on site and they're kind of on week 3 of our setup. Good job. I like ingenuity. They bring in about 20 artisans and 28 plus semi-truckloads full of lanterns that'll start being set up and curated throughout the zoo. So we've been kind of running around helping them organize that.
I'm all for putting it where that bare ground is.
We are a working zoo and home to a bunch of different animals, and we are very mindful of that. So when we do a setup, we want to make sure the animals love the lanterns as much as we do, so we can keep the habitat without impacting it at all.
Yeah.
I like that. We usually check in with the animal departments early in the day with the work that we're planning on doing around different habitats, and then we'll kind of update them as we're going. So they might tell us everything's great, come on by. Otherwise they might say, oh, somebody's having a morning. We've all been there. So Mondays happen even in the animal world, and we work around those. So we'll end up just shifting and kind of going to plan B at that point. Also talking about next year's Wild Lights event. If we are able to bring them back again, we want to have a good plan in place. It's 4.7 stars favorability. People love this event. Kind of have a punch list for what we're hoping to get done at any given day. With events, that is never actually the case. So we might start with plan A, have a backup plan B, and even a plan C on paper, but we usually end up somewhere around D, E, F, or sometimes Z sub 2. We have so many balls in the air at any given time. Inevitably, there's going to be something that drops, but you got to make sure it's not the big ball and that somebody else can kind of pick it up and carry on behind you. I work very closely with our guest services team, and we work closely with our marketing team. So really being able to kind of facilitate those different departments and manage those relationships. Do you have any other questions for Ms. Kyle? Along with managing the animal relationships too, and our animal department team as well. I have the best job in the world. Every day is a different day for me, whether we're setting up for an event, planning an event, breaking down from an event, or talking about what we'd like to do for an event. Every single day is something different. I get to say hello to kids and make people happy. Who could ask for a better job than that while working around amazing animals? It's just really the best job ever.
They just want what they don't have. We are in the Islands Pavilion. We have our Rodriguez fruit bats inside here. They're going for the spring mix. Fruit bats are found in just a few places in the world: Southeast Asia, Africa, and Pacific Islands. Not the only one that's there, girls. The great thing about fruit bats is they eat fruit. It's in the name. So they're pollinators. Because of that, because they eat a great deal of fruits and flowers found in their natural habitat. So they would, in the course of just going around and eating and finding their food, get that pollen on them and then disperse that around. Same with the seeds. So that's why they're awesome pollinators and very important to our ecosystem. It's all foods that we eat. So bananas, papaya, guava, anything that we import from other countries, fruits and vegetables, they're a part of making that happen, being pollinators. Look at them.
Some of these bees that are coming in, you see these yellow things kind of up above their hind legs. That's pollen that they've gathered and they're bringing in as food.
Bees are important. We're here behind the MetaZoo because it's quiet, we're away from the public. The bees aren't going to be disturbed by people walking by or lots of noise or parties. Bees are really important because they pollinate all the plants around us. So here at the zoo, we like our bees because they keep the place looking beautiful. All of the flowers, trees, shrubs. We want to make sure that we're taking care of them and we give them a place to live. But we also want to tell the story of bees. These aren't your typical zoo animal because they can come and go as they please, but we can bring groups here, we can have conversations about bees, we can teach kids about bees, the importance of bees, the importance of pollinators.
Bee numbers are drastically reduced in the winter. A lot of them do kind of die off in the fall, and there's just a little core of bees, and in this hive in the wintertime, they'd be about the size of my fist, and they're just kind of huddled up in there keeping warm. And then as the weather starts to warm up, they start consuming more food. Those bees will start to reproduce again, and then we'll have tens of thousands of bees in here by this summer and fall.
All of the bees that you see flying around are female. The only male bees are the drones. So there's a queen who is female. There's the male drones, and their one job is to help the queen lay eggs and make baby bees. And all the worker bees are female. And so those are the ones that you see flying around. So a lot of times you'll hear beekeepers saying, "Oh, hey, hello ladies, how you doing ladies? Go home ladies." We talk to our lady bees like that.
One of the things that we want to do here at the zoo is we want to show people that bees are really peaceful by nature. They're not here to harm us. I'm standing next to our beehive. We have bees flying around, and we want to make sure that people understand that. And people aren't going to go out and spray bees or stomp bees or swat at bees because they're really doing us a service by helping our plants grow. Some things that you can do for bees at home are just to be friendly to bees, not spray pesticides. Grow pollinator habitats in your backyard. Set up a bee house in your backyard. You'll attract bees who can live there. You can feed bees with bee feeders or even water. Bees need water, so setting up a bird bath or bee water in your backyard will help. That can help bees because it gives them a safe spot to stay, a safe spot to set up a hive, and a safe spot to reproduce, which is what we need. We need bees reproducing, having more bees, doing more pollinating, and creating more plant diversity.
So tying the pollinators into our theme for Trashformation, which is our annual student recycled art contest, we're asking students of all ages, from preschool to high school, to submit projects that help pollinators somehow. So we're looking for bird houses and bat houses and bee houses, anything that's going to be beneficial to habitat for pollinators. The goal is to not buy anything to make these, to use found items in your yard or in your garage or whatever to make these houses. We're just going to ask you to submit photos of those and videos of those and talk a little bit about your artist statement about why you chose to build that particular thing, why pollinators are important, why this particular thing is beneficial to pollinators. Submit those to us by April 4th, and then the winners will be invited to display their pollinator pieces. The Trashformation Art Contest is part of our larger Party for the Planet, which is basically a month-long celebration of the Earth that we do in April thanks to LG&E and KU Foundation. So be sure to check out all the activities we have going on for that Earth Month, including Trashformation, including some discount days, and some discount fun day Mondays as well.
I think they're pretty cool. I think those are amazing. I love nature. I'm a nature kid. I love bears. I love birds. I just like to look at nature, sometimes enjoy the sights.
Yeah, and sometimes I love to watch nature documentaries. Yeah!
Thanks for joining us on The Wild Side. We hoped you learned a lot today about pollinators and how to care for them and how to build additional habitat space for them. Be sure to check out LouisvilleZoo.org to learn more about wild lights and see these beautiful lanterns. Also to learn about our monarchs and milkweed program. We'll see you next time. And also, be nice to the bees. They're very important.